Somebody asked the other day, "Why would I buy a house in my 60s? I'll never live long enough to pay it off." And honestly, I get why people think that way. It's the most natural question in the world. But I want to gently push back on it because I think it comes from a wrong starting point. It assumes the point of buying a house is to finish paying for it. It isn't. The point of buying a house is to live in it, safely, comfortably, on your own terms, for as long as you want to stay. So let's sit with that idea for a minute before we get into the numbers and the stories, because the numbers only make sense once the idea does. The quiet myth a lot of people carry around, that a mortgage means the bank owns your house. It doesn't. The day you close escrow, the house is yours. Every right that comes with ownership, living in it, controlling it, deciding who comes and goes, enjoying it, and eventually passing it on or selling it. The lender only holds a claim against the property in case you stop paying. That's it. They can't show up and take your keys after one missed payment the way a car lender can repossess a vehicle. In most states, including California, foreclosure is a slow legal process that takes months, not days. So the mortgage balance isn't really the scary number people think it is. What matters is the gap between what the house is worth and what you owe. That gap is your equity, and equity is real wealth, whether you're 35 or 85. For an instance, a man who bought a small farm at 65, no down payment. He didn't pay a penny extra toward the mortgage. Just paid it the normal way, month after month. 7 years later, at 72, he passed away. When the farm sold, it went for more than $300,000 above what he paid. The proceeds paid off what was left on the loan, and there was still a substantial amount left over for his family. He never finished paying off that mortgage. It didn't matter. He lived those 7 years exactly where he wanted to be, and when he was gone, the house had already done its job, both as a home and as an asset that passed on real value to the people he loved. Now flip that around. A woman bought her home at 69. She's 77 now, still there, still going strong. At 71, she refinanced. At this rate, she jokes, she'll be past 100 before the loan is actually paid off. Does that bother her? Not even a little. The house has already gained about $300,000 in value since she bought it. Her plan is simple: live there as long as she can. And if there's a small balance left when she's gone, so be it. The house is worth far more than what's owed, and that math works out fine for everyone, including whoever eventually buys it from her. Let's ground all this in something concrete, because stories are nice, but numbers are what actually let you decide for yourself. Rent has climbed by an average of about 4% a year in the U.S. It doesn't happen every single year. Some years a landlord holds steady, but sooner or later, the increase comes. A place renting for $2,000 a month today is a realistic $2,400 or more 5 years from now, and it keeps climbing after that, for as long as you rent. Compare that to owning. Say you buy a $400,000 home with a modest down payment at something like 6.75% interest, a realistic rate in today's market. Your total payment, including taxes, insurance, and mortgage insurance, might land somewhere around $2,900 a month. That's higher than the $2,000 rent on a similar place at first. But here's the part people skip. A real chunk of that payment, often $300 to $400 a month right out of the gate, isn't an expense at all. It's going straight into your own equity, like a forced savings account, so your true monthly cost is lower than the sticker number. And because rent keeps rising 4% a year while your mortgage payment mostly stays flat, the two costs tend to converge within about 5 years, and after that, owning just keeps getting relatively cheaper. There's also the VA loan option for anyone who served. It allows a home purchase with zero down payment. One buyer used it at age 75 to buy a $470,000 home with no money down. 3.5 years later, that home was worth about $575,000, and the loan balance had dropped to $444,000, meaning $130,000 in equity had appeared out of nothing, purely through paying the loan down and the market doing what real estate tends to do over time. Now, about paying it off fast. Some folks take a completely different approach and swear by it. Instead of a 30-year loan, they aim to pay the whole thing off in 10 years or less, no matter their age. Their thinking goes like this. Before you buy, ask yourself honestly, could I pay this off in 10 years? If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, maybe the home is a stretch, and it's worth looking at something more modest or a different area altogether. There's no single right answer here between the 30-year approach and the 10-year approach. Both of the paths above worked out well for the people who chose them. What matters is picking the one that matches your own comfort with debt and your own plans for the money each month. What to actually look for if you're buying later in life. If you are thinking about this for yourself, here's what tends to matter most once you're buying with the decades ahead in mind, not just the years right after closing. A single-story layout matters enormously. No stairs to manage his knees and balance change over time. A walk-in shower, or at least the ability to install one, removes one of the most common causes of injury at home. Being near hospitals and healthcare access, rather than far out in the country, becomes more valuable the older you get, even if the country appeals to you today. Smaller square footage, or a townhome or condo with an HOA, means someone else handles the mowing, the snow, the roof repairs. For a fee, sure, but often it balances out once you account for lower utilities and lower insurance on a smaller footprint. And if travel matters to you in retirement, being a reasonable drive from an airport without being under a flight path is one of those small quality-of-life details people forget to weigh until after they've moved. None of this is about giving up on independence. It's closer to the opposite. Buying a home built around aging in place so you're never forced into assisted living or forced out by a landlord's decision is what actually protects your independence the longest. It's worth being honest about what renting actually costs over the same stretch of years, because the comparison isn't renting is free versus owning is expensive. When you rent, part of your payment is covering the landlord's own mortgage on that property, plus their profit margin on top. Rent rises roughly 4% a year on average for as long as you stay. And when the lease ends or the landlord decides to sell or a family member needs the unit, you move. On their timeline, not yours. And you walk away with nothing built up for yourself, no matter how many years you were a reliable tenant. Run that out over 20 or 30 years, and the total amount spent on rent, with nothing to show for it at the end, is often larger than what an owner spends net of the equity they've built. That's not a knock on renting as a stage of life. It's simply the trade-off worth seeing clearly. Now, I don't want this to sound like buying is the only respectable answer, because it isn't. There are real situations where renting in your 60s or beyond is the smarter, more peaceful choice. And it's worth walking through those honestly with the same kind of numbers we just used for buying. When should I consider renting instead? Renting makes the most sense when you value flexibility over permanence. If you like the idea of being able to leave with 30 or 60 days notice, to move closer to a grandchild, to try a new city for a season, to relocate for a health need, a lease gives you that freedom in a way a mortgage simply doesn't. It also makes sense if your income isn't steady enough to comfortably qualify for a mortgage, or if you'd rather not tie up a large lump sum in a down payment when that money might be better used elsewhere, invested, or kept liquid for emergencies. And if home repairs, yard work, and maintenance genuinely aren't something you want to think about at any point, renting hands all of that to someone else, full stop. No exceptions, no HOA meetings, no repair bills showing up unannounced. If renting is the path that fits you, here's what's worth prioritizing the same way we did for buying. A single-story unit or one with elevator access, so stairs are never a daily obstacle. A walk-in or curb-less shower, or at minimum, a unit where the landlord will allow you to add grab bars. Proximity to healthcare, groceries, and public transit, so a car isn't a daily requirement. And ideally, a longer-term lease or a building with a reputation for renewing good tenants, since the biggest risk in renting later in life isn't the monthly cost. It's the chance of being asked to move on someone else's timeline at an age when moving is genuinely harder. So, should you buy in your 60s? Honestly, that part isn't for me to decide for you, and it isn't for anyone in the comments to decide for you either. What I can tell you is this: age by itself isn't the disqualifying factor people assume it is. People have bought homes at 60, 65, 69, 75, with VA loans, with no down payment, with 10-year payoff plans, with 30-year loans they never expected to finish. And in story after story, the common thread isn't, "I regretted it." It's some version of, "I got to live where I wanted, on my own terms, for as long as I wanted, and the house took care of the rest." Run your own numbers. Look at your own health, your own family, your own income. Decide whether a 10-year runway feels right for you, or whether a 30-year loan you may never finish is perfectly fine, because the house was never really about finishing it. It was about living in it.